I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerczek. Happy to be joined today across the table, fellow marketeer, favorite on the show, Preston Lentfer, veteran of the show, of somebody that's been requested to have back on the show, Mike Whitey Jensen from engineering. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
You bet.
Thank you.
Never been surrounded by so much leather here. And some of it's pretty unique. We'll have to get into that.
We will get into that. It's pretty unique leather. And I will say right out of the gate, to address the not elephant in the room, but just so everybody knows, Preston and I are incredibly out of our league regarding today's topic. And it's not necessarily from ignorance or anything. It's just quite simply, I don't have the exposure. I don't have the trigger time with revolvers. But if there is a revolver guy at Hornady, it's Whitey Jensen.
Yep. And there's a couple, but Mike's at the top of the list.
Mike's at the top. If I was going to do anything revolver-wise and shotgun-wise, I'm going to Whitey
and
for sure.
Gunsmithing.
Anything, well, yeah. You know, if you ever need concrete poured, I've seen Mike finish some concrete.
Yeah.
Plumbing, there's really nothing that this guy can't do. And Whitey, before we get into, we've done a series called kind of Hornady Builds, and primarily they've exclusively been rifle builds. But today we're taking a different angle with your two revolver builds. So before we dive into those, what draws you and what drew you initially to revolvers, and how long have you been a revolver guy?
Oh, I guess it started shortly after I started working at Hornady, which was late 70s, early 80s. And partly what started me in the handgun stuff was the Silhouette.
Oh, yeah.
IHMSA. So I shot IHMSA. I bought a Colt Python Silhouette. I wish I still had it.
Yeah, I bet.
But it's an old, I bought it and I shot it religiously daily. I would go down at my lunch break for years and shoot 10 rounds. Start out by putting 1 pound of weight on one hand, and then hold the gun out, shoot a 5-shot group, 2 to 3 5-shot groups every lunch, and hold the gun out the whole time. And then I added another pound to the other hand, and then later put the scope on. So I had a fair amount of, and hold it out there.
Yeah, you had some endurance.
And I would shoot for group size. So,
well, and that sport of silhouette shooting, I don't know a ton about it, but we've, coworker Tim Zaleski that used to work upstairs in tech with us. I know he shot it, and Lonnie shot it quite a bit. So I heard a lot of the stories.
I've shot on a Silhouette range.
Yeah,
but that's it.
So I know you have to be accurate, and you have to hit that darn thing. You can't come out there with your 38 special or something light recoiling. Yeah. You got to smack those long ones.
Yeah, especially the long ones.
The Rams 200 meter are heavy, right?
200 meter ones, yeah. So, yeah, there was a lot of guys that would shoot small pistols, do 70 Ran and stuff like that. And then they would complain because, you hit it good and it didn't go down because there's a little bit of breeze or something that kept it from going down.
Sure, the breeze.
So a little bit of breeze from the backside, and they didn't get, they're hard set,
Yeah.
And I'd pull up with my 454 and
whack,
hit it. I said, I hit that in the leg and it went off.
So there was an advantage to go big, but you had to be able to shoot them. You couldn't just have big for big's sake.
Well, and you've never been, as long as I've known you, you've never been afraid of recoil.
I've learned how to cope with it.
Yeah. And I probably got 100 pounds on you, and then I don't like recoil. But you handle it well.
Yeah, you learn to put it through. You just put it out of your mind, I guess, and let it happen.
And we'll talk more about that, Preston, because I learned something right before recording when you were out setting up cameras and such, specific to the grips and how that interacts with your hand with the recoil, because these are big, heavy recoiling guns. So, Mike, from the late 70s on, you've drawn to the revolver, and you've got some cool ones here. So let's start off with the bigger of the two, the longer barrel. I want to hear the origin story of the pistol, and we're going to jump in there and interject because there's a lot of really cool things that happened at Hornady Manufacturing within the industry that this pistol was around for and helped develop.
It was a big part of, yeah.
So
before we dive into that, though, just you know the number off the top of your head, how many years you've been at Hornady? What are we on now? 25.
July will be 50.
July will be 50 years at Hornady.
it's a long time to do anything.
Yeah. And we're glad we got you.
Oh, yeah. You're not. Yeah. I think Steve Hornady said you're not allowed to retire.
Well, he's been talking about it.
Yeah, he's got
I
to
don't
fund
know.
those.
Someday
I won't allow it.
Yeah, maybe when he
I'm
gets
no
old.
spring chicken anymore. So
Well, you got too many adventures planned, which we're going to talk about how these pistols are involved with those adventures as well. So 50 years coming up on of honorable service. Let's jump into this big one. This is a long barrel revolver. You've got the optic on top. You've got some cool grips we'll talk about. A bunch of other stuff going on. So when did you get that pistol and why did you go with that one?
So of course, shooting silhouette, Freedom Arms, Baker, Wayne Baker and stuff. I mean, they were building the 454, which was a key to me because I wanted to eventually hunt with it and stuff like that. So, and Freedom Arms, of course, out there at Silhouette Range was the gun to beat. I mean, there was literally the most accurate revolver on the market and still is.
Sure.
So that's what drew me to these pistols.
Okay.
These are Freedom Arms.
So we see that today in like precision rifle sports and other things. That's what the winner's using. I'm going to go get that.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So this one here, do you remember when you got it?
I bought that I'm not 100% sure, but it was probably about 1986. I bought that. Of course, that was introduced in 83. So it was introduced, and then we got one at work, and then I was shopping around, and I wound up trading an old Bernardelli side-by-side for that one. And
Good trade.
yeah, it was a good trade. It was a good trade.
Yeah, you've still got it going well. What kind of groups do you shoot with this? Revolver?
That gun will, with that scope on there, will shoot somewhere in the 1.5 1.25 groups at 100 yards.
Some people don't
That's
do with a rifle.
Rifle accuracy.
Yeah, I mean that's literally pretty solid to say that it'll do it just in and out, especially with it likes the 240 grain XTP mag bullet, and it shoots the Hunter.
The handgun
the
hunter.
handgun Hunter bullet.
Okay.
Shoots that just as well.
Wow.
The last time I put it on paper, I shot like a little wad with the 240s, and then I put another cylinder in and shot the other ones, and they were almost identical group.
So bullets have a lot to do with the accuracy of a system. You got to have a good bullet. And part of the history piece that ties in here, Mike, you were a bullet press operator. It's what you got hired on to be. You've done everything in the plant now. But at the time, you mentioned Wayne Baker at Freedom Arms didn't consider the Hornady pistol bullets at the time to be a viable hunting bullet.
No, they with the pressures that the 454 produces and what have you, they said that our bullet wasn't strong enough to handle them kind of pressures, especially through the forcing cones. So that was our goal, was to solve that problem and make it be able to.
You needed a viable bullet that's going to handle the pressure,
right?
Retain the accuracy, and have terminal performance. And this is likened to a lot of the things that happen now for new product development. But you and the team working on what would become our famous XTP pistol bullet.
Yeah,
kind of behind the scenes.
That was the beginning of the XTP. That was the first XTP bullet that we ever made.
And Steve Hornady not super excited about that initially.
Yeah, no, we were, me and another tool maker, and of course I was working as a press operator and as a tool and die. So we basically put that bullet together because I wanted to try it in that gun anyway. But we put that bullet together while one of the plant managers was out for a couple of weeks or a week.
My. So Black Ops been going around.
Black-
for a
Whitey's
long
the
time.
originator of the Black Ops.
We did that, and then when he didn't want us messing with it, but we did that, and then when he came back, we presented it to Steve and him at the same time, and Steve's like, I think we could probably do something a lot more with this. But we showed him the results.
Yeah.
Showed him the results. We could actually add a line or something to this stuff. So then, of course, that bullet that I made for that evolved into a different bullet afterwards.
Yeah.
But
So 2 things come out of that. Number 1, fast forward 40 years, you have our flagship pistol bullet to this day. I mean, we've got Critical Defense, we've got Critical Duty, we've got Handgun Hunter. They all make, they're great bullets. But for universal personal defense, hunting, target shooting, etc., the XTP is one of the benchmarks in the industry.
I don't think there's hardly a better bullet out there, really, that, for pistols, that as far as accuracy, this bullet will outshoot anything. I've shot a bunch of other bullets through them guns, and by far the XTPs will shoot as good as any of them.
And the second thing that came out of there, which I think is really cool, is right here at my fingertips is the pistol that shot the first XTP bullets, or what would become the XTP.
Yeah.
Hot off Whitey's press.
I'm going to touch it.
Right into
I did it.
the 454 Casull. So the history with that is super cool. Obviously shooting silhouette, which was a big thing in that era. Then you wanted to start hunting with it. So you've got a bullet that can do the hunting. What are some of the first things you did to use this in the field? Because shooting, the silhouette versus hunting antelope or deer, very different things.
Obviously, well, when I first bought that gun, it had the rubber Pacmar grips on it.
Mm-hmm.
The bad thing. That was one of the first things I changed. Was the Pacmars put so much energy into your wrist that you can't shoot at 50. You can't shoot a match with it without beating you up.
So let's dive into that real quick. So Pacmar, a famous name in grips, they offer really good grip, but by doing so, the interface between that firearm recoiling and that energy traveling through into your wrist is enhanced because you got a really good...
Because it doesn't move in your hand.
Right.
It doesn't slip. It doesn't. And you need it to move just a little. It don't have to. It's not like it's
going to jump back and hit you.
But so the first thing I did, of course, that was early on. I made a set of polymer grips for it, smooth polymer grips, so I could shoot it without eating my wrist up.
What color was that? Were those?
Just white.
Just
of course,
white,
everything's white on mine, just about.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So you stripped the grips. You got some new polymer ones that you made, and then what was next?
And then, of course, we, back in silhouette day, that was all open sights. So, but I wanted to hunt with it, so I mounted a scope on it, which was that 2.5 to 8 Leopold, which is a great scope. Too bad that they're discontinuing it. That should not happen. But anyway, that's another.
If you're listening.
Yeah, Leopold, if you're listening. Well, let's talk about the mount, though, because that is what is super unique about this.
Right. So the first mount I bought mounted the scope much further back, pretty much straight over the top of the frame, which when I started antelope hunting with it, which you do a lot of belly crawling, you wind up with a lot of cactus and
oh boy,
in parts you don't even want to know. Anyway, those every time you're on the ground, I couldn't get the gun far enough away from me
to get a good sight picture.
to get a full sight picture. So then I'm like, okay, I've got to move this scope forward. So that's what prompted me to make a scope mount for it.
Yep. I think we should bring the cameras in for the viewer.
Yeah, we'll
dive
definitely
in.
do that.
That's a custom made piece.
Yeah.
Does Freedom Arms or anybody offer a mount of any kind?
They,
or you just said, I'm handy and I'm going to make one myself?
There was I think they called them SOB mount. They made a Picatinny rail type
Okay.
system for them, and you could mount them forward. They made one of those, and I think Freedom Arms even offered that in there. Now they're not in business anymore, I guess. So
Sure.
when I talked to Bob Baker last, because I just got another one of his break open pistols that I was playing around with, and he said they were working on a different type of mount for front
Okay.
to move the scope
Yeah, like
forward.
a cantilever for the AR enthusiast. To push
So
it out.
they're working on another scope mount for that because they can't get that SOV one anymore.
Well, you don't
So-
need it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like you've probably got attachment points here in the receiver itself, I guess.
Yeah,
And then this is adjustable here, it kind of looks like, to give you...
that just takes out any springboard on
Right.
it. It's
So
got a little
it's-
nylon piece underneath there, so I could mount it as far forward as I could,
Mm-hmm.
and then I could put just a little tension on that, and then get rid of any springboard,
Any
Yeah.
flex. Yeah,
any flex on it.
that's brilliant.
Yeah, and
So-
then adapted to use those Ruger style.
Those
rings.
are those are Ruger
Interesting.
rings. They were Ruger rings, but I made the rest of it.
Which is just beautiful. It looks factory from the finish to the radiuses to the
Oh,
lines.
yeah.
It looks like that
and
came.
the bottom of it pockets down and goes inside of the receiver on the top of the frame. So it actually
guy.
goes, just like this would be pocketed in.
Mhm.
Wow.
Oh yeah, like almost
So
like
it's
a dovetail.
pocketed in there. So that scope mount can't move anywhere.
So needless to say, it holds zero.
Yeah.
And it better with a big recoiler.
It's never off.
That's fantastic.
I got a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Going back to silhouette, I had 3 questions, and you know how life is. I forgot most of them.
Mhm.
One that comes to mind is silhouette shooting. Never done it. I've seen videos where guys are like laying down and resting against their leg
the
and
old
all that stuff.
Creedmoor
Did you do all
style,
that?
the old Creedmoor. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
That's
you would
part of
do
it?
that, but I like the standing part of it.
Okay.
So they had a hunter class, or it's a shorter range thing for smaller
division. Okay.
guns, and then they had the longer range one. One went out to 100 yards, I think. The other one went out to 200 meters. But the Creedmoor style was where you could lay down and you could use a sport.
Okay.
So, and if you were using a revolver, you had a leather strap that you would cover, or that you'd strap onto your leg
Yeah, you should.
I'll
keep
be
from-
dang.
For the cylinder gap would
to keep
probably
from
Yeah,
cutting you.
yeah.
To keep it from cutting your
But
leg.
that's all open sights.
But it's
right.
all open sights, and
So
then there's
was
a
it-
standing class too. So
Were these the ones that were on there for open sights, or was it just the way it came from
they
the
were.
factory?
These will come later. That's
Okay.
the
that's
start
for
of
this one here.
That's
Oh,
for
okay.
this one.
And
That
then,
was the start of the hunting with this one.
okay. And then I did remember one of them, and now it's eluding me again. No, in the early '80s when you bought this revolver, I know Monty just got one. Took a year, right, to get it. Was that the case back then too, or was things faster or slower?
I don't know. I guess it wasn't until I ordered that 41, and it took me. He was about a year out on
Okay.
that too.
Well, that's kind of what you expect
So-
from the most accurate
Yeah.
revolver
Yeah.
out
They're-
there. you know?
They're backlogged a ways. So
Sure, and for good reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for good reason.
Power and performance in the palm of your hand. Hornady Handgun Hunter Ammunition. Built around the tough copper alloy Monoflex handgun bullet that features a proprietary elastomer tip, deep penetration, and high weight retention. Handgun Hunter Ammunition. As rough and rugged as the conditions and game demand.
So let's talk a couple things on this pistol. The trigger. For match shooting, we always like light triggers for our rifles. Is it the same for a pistol? What'd you do on the trigger?
yeah, you can ask Bob Baker or Freedom Arms. They'll do a trigger job
Okay.
on them for you. So they're usually 4 pounds, I think, on the standard size, and then I think they're under 3 pounds.
Well, heck, to me, on a
Per-
pistol, 4 pounds doesn't
So
sound
they're
too
nice.
bad.
They're nice, crisp, clean triggers. They're not
Okay.
heavy.
So nothing super crazy like, some of those cowboy action guys running ounce triggers or nothing.
No,
This thing is
it's
safe
still
to-
it's still huntable, safe. Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us all the way down to the grips. Now, the grips are super unique, and I know you had to do some shaping here on the grip itself. Let's talk about the grips and how you shaped those in there.
Okay. There's for one on the grips, I made them a little bit heftier, wide, and I flared them a little bit on the bottom.
Okay.
So that they didn't roll up too far on me. When I drop them back down, they drop right back down to a pocket, basically. So they're flared so they don't just slip, when you put them back down, they don't just slip through
the
your
heel
hand.
of the grip hits the heel of your hand.
Right,
And
so
you're locked
they're
in.
flared a little on the bottom. And then I radiused the bottom of them.
Mm.
So that was my radius on the bottom. The reason I did that is because I was always looking for a rest to shoot off from, especially off from a tripod or something.
Right.
I was always looking for a rest, so I was always making different types of things to shoot off from. Started out with big leather shooting pad, that was
Right.
awkward and not very user friendly.
Right.
Sure.
So anyway, when it was in Australia there a few years ago, and
We'll have to
bust
pull
it out.
I couldn't bust it out, yeah. So I seen these kangaroo
Well,
Well,
let's
it
call it
just
what
is
it
what
is.
it is.
kangaroo scrotums, kangaroo. So I thought, that's just the right size.
Probably really tough.
And they have the toughest balls in the world. I mean, it can't be, obviously, because I've shot. So what I do is I basically mount that pistol on top of there, and I can roll it wherever I want.
Okay.
That's why I radius the bottom of the pistols.
Wow. So we'll dive into this here while you've got it out. What'd you fill it with? Because there's some
So
sort of
there's-
media in there.
Yeah, I've tried different medias. This has just got like styrofoam beads because they're light.
They're light. Yep.
Don't-
And they move around.
Yeah, and then I can just add some. They get crushed a little bit after a while, and I can just add more in the bottom.
But you know
I made the base, the base, and
And it's Arca Swiss. So you clamp that right in your tripod.
yeah, you just clamp it right in your tripod.
Simple.
What's crazy to me? Well, it's not crazy, but it kind of adds up, right? When we first started shooting PRS and all that stuff, we had a game changer, and it was full of sand, right? And it was full of media. Nowadays, you get one, and then you pour 40% of it out
Yeah.
immediately. He's got a bunch of it out there, so you got a lot of room for squishing and getting real stable, and that's what we do nowadays.
Yeah, that's so.
And for the
So that's-
viewer, you can see this. Now, for the listener, you think of the bottom of a revolver grip and, whatever that is, 1 3/4 diameter.
Mhm.
So your kangaroo scrotum, as it were, is tanned and stretched into a ball that's about 2 inches, maybe 2 1/4 in diameter. So you can set the heel of the revolver in
Yeah.
there and get it nice and stable.
And I will say, Wayne Baker, from Freedom Arms, he told me he didn't really recommend people shooting their pistols off the grip,
Mm-hmm.
but with the way I've made this and the way I can shoot tight groups with it, most of the time, yeah, you got to be careful about shooting off of the grip because Wayne will tell you that you're going to affect your accuracy. You're going to affect a lot of things shooting off the grip. So, but with this here, with the soft pad and everything,
Yep.
it works quite well for me.
Okay. Well, it's unique in that if anybody takes away any podcast that you've been on, Mike, it's that you are unique and you will make something to fit your unique needs.
Mhm.
Let's jump back over here to the grip. So we've got the radius bottom that works well with your
And this is walrus tusk, right?
narwhal
No.
tusk.
Narwhal, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was sheep hunting. First time I was sheep hunting, I was like, and I didn't, and the bad thing is, I had that gun with me, and I just, we'd been sheep hunting up a couple of times, and we've made hikes up and whatever. And, at that point, I'm a handgun owner because I'm carrying a rifle along with me.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
So I'm a handgun owner. I'm not a handgun hunter, but at some point we spotted a sheep and he was way up there, and I just took the pistol out,
Yeah.
left it.
You're here. We're going.
I'm like, okay, we're going to go kill this sheep. This right now, this is probably weight. So, and I'm getting old, so I don't need extra weight on me. So,
Oh my!
and we got all the way up there.
You're not
within
old yet. You don't hunt out of a tree stand.
I can't do that. But we got all the way up to him, and it was like 150 yards. And Bob looks back at me, my guide. He looks back at me and he goes, "Where's your pistol?" I said, "I threw it out because it's heavy." He's like, "Oh crap! You could kill this sheep."
Oh, 150
He
yards.
said, "You could kill this sheep. We're in handgun range because we think it was going to be 400 or 500
Right.
yards, And we walked right up to him. We almost got to him.
Hmm.
And I was kicking myself for not having him with me then, but because I probably could have killed him easily.
So, what'd you use then?
So that's what prompted me to put the sheep horn. This is
Okay.
actually Doll sheep horn.
All right.
So then there's quite a lot of work to making Doll sheep horn.
So you have this giant
Because
Gaull
you have
sheep
this
horn.
horn. Yeah, I bought the horn, and I bought basically a horn from a knife maker there in Fairbanks.
Okay.
So I bought because I didn't want to use my own.
Yeah.
But so you had to cut it out. I had to get the slabbed out piece of it, and then it's got to be stable. So it heat. So you got to kind of stabilize it.
Yeah. Let it sit.
So I kind of machined part of it, got it, and then I used crazy glue. It's like a real thin crazy glue, and then you soak it, and you put that on the backside and soak it in and try to get it so it's stable.
Clear.
and
Basically, fill in all asperities, all openings, anything that you want to occlude the whole
Right,
thing. It's
right.
almost like
So then, yeah.
tuning that to the butt joint on a piece of wood. You want to occlude
Right.
all that.
And then you can start doing the shaping and get it all shaped and what have you. And
I have to imagine it.
otherwise, they'll warp and do all kinds of weird stuff.
It had to start out darker than that, and then as you started sanding,
No, it was actually lighter than that.
lighter. Okay.
You got one thing about Doll sheep horn when you're working it, you got to be careful not to spend too much time on a sander or something like that, because heat will make it turn different colors.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
What was the
So-
sanding process like? Because this thing, before we were recording, this is butter smooth,
Yeah.
like baby butt
yeah,
smooth.
so I of course start out with files and what have you, try to get the shaping, and then you just work smaller, lighter, and finer sandpaper until you get it.
Did you go
to
to
the
like
surface.
2,000?
Oh, it's
Wet
probably
sanded?
not quite that, but it's about 1,000.
What's
Okay.
crazy to me as I'm looking at it, and we'll put the close up in, like, it doesn't look smooth necessarily.
It
to
doesn't.
Me.
It does not.
It looks like it. It looks right here with the grain of the horn that if I ran my finger across here, I'd
Yeah.
catch something.
Yeah,
But it
feels
is as smooth as could
It's
be.
just got depth to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's got a certain amount of depth in it.
Yeah. And to go back to his original reason to swap the grips out back when he was still shooting competitively is butter smooth. So that thing's going to move a little bit in your hand.
Yep.
And, I can appreciate that having a kind of a gimp hand here that, so I'll get bit right here on the web of my thumb. And I don't care for that.
hmm
Yeah.
Well, and my wrist pop every
30 seconds.
minute. So, yeah. Also, I got that big old
Yeah.
booger on there, too.
So a super
Office.
cool revolver, tons of history. No doll sheep under its belt, unfortunately, but
Not yet.
close.
We're going back this year, so
Okay.
I'm taking my son Levi back to Lasco, and he's got doll sheep on his list. We're gonna shop for a doll sheep, but we'll probably have a grizzly bear tag, and then
Oh, that would be cool, Mike.
so that's, and of course I've been there twice with this outfit before. Last year with my son Jeremiah, I killed a huge moose.
Yeah, you did.
62 or something wide.
Mm.
And of course I was out there shopping for a bear off of his gut pile. My guide and we come riding back after no bear on at that time, but we'd seen tracks. Knew there's bears in the area. And we get about halfway out. He's like, he whirls his horse around and goes, "Hey, Whitey, you want to kill a big ass moose?" And I'm like, hell yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I killed one the year before with that handgun, but I'm like, hell yeah, why not?
Yeah, we're here, and that was a big moose.
What's funny is your son's moose was big,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden
yeah.
yours kind of outdid it a little bit. I hate to
Well,
say it.
yeah, because Jeremiah, he was all pumped because he had the biggest moose in the family. Because I've taken my daughters hunting, and I've killed a couple of moose, 3 moose now, and but 2 moose before that. And Jeremiah's like, I got the biggest moose in the family.
And not for long.
For a couple days?
2 days later, we're out there on his gut pile, or go out when it went right out there. Excuse me, went riding out there, and of course we come back late, pretty late after dark, because we gutted the moose and all that stuff, and we couldn't pack it out, but we got it prepared, and then we come riding back in. And of course, Jeremiah's thinking we killed a bear.
Sure.
And he's coming
Great
over
success.
there. He's like, "You get a bear? You get a bear?" "No, we didn't kill no bear." I said, "But we killed a big ass moose."
Well, when you guys drove back, so you drive up there so you can bring your meat home and stuff.
Yeah.
When you came pulling into Hornady HQ, pulled your rig right up to the front door,
Yeah.
and nonchalant, "Well, I got the moose outside if you want to see him." It was a spectacle to see
Yeah.
the roof rack. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just antler from
Two
in.
big moose
And
up
if
there.
you're watching, we'll put a picture in right
260 plus moose in there.
Yeah.
66 on the second one.
Oh.
So Jeremiah, he said, "Was it bigger than mine?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so."
now. Afraid so, son.
Did you have this holster with you on the trip? Because that's another piece of the
Yeah,
of the
that one
puzzle
that
here.
comes with me all the time. That's a holster that Aaron Cedar's father made.
Yep.
He's one of our managers there at Hornady.
Yeah, so
And
Aaron
his-
manages our cartridge case division,
Mhm.
and his father obviously does some leather work.
Yeah, he did some leather work, and that was a leather holster he built me.
Now, how do you wear this? What is it across the shoulders?
It's a shoulder. It rides right under here.
Okay. So when you're out hunting and you're carrying the rifle, when you're a handgun owner, it's somewhat out of the way.
It's somewhat out of the way.
Yep, and still relatively quick should you need it in a hurry.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. Yeah, there's a lot of leather work going on there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stamping.
Yeah, and there's quite a few years where I was handgun owner because you're going to places like this that you've spent a lot of time building points to draw
Sure.
tag. You get a chance. Not very often, usually, of a really truly good animal. So you kind of want to take advantage of it. You hate to
Hate to leave
you
it
hate
to
to
chance.
leave it because that you can't get close enough. But
Well,
since
that
then,
wasn't the worst part of the story, though, because didn't you go on your moose's gut pile?
And there was a
later
big
on?
grizz.
well, that was the same kind of deal with not having that on that sheep hunt. I killed that moose. We got him out, went back to camp, come back the next morning. Knowing there's grizzly bears in the area. We had already seen a sow and 2 cubs and a big track in the horse trail that we was coming up on. So anyway, we come back the next day to pack my moose out, and the bears had been all over it.
Mm.
So they chewed up the face. They chewed the whole moose up. Not terrible. They hadn't been on it too long. 'Cause it was just late overnight. So we're like, oh crap! And Scotty, he's like, "Hey, Whitey, you need to buy another bear tag, and we'll come back and kill this bear." And I'm like, "Man, Scotty, I've
spent a lot of money.
so much money now. I got to stop the bleeding. I got to stop the bleeding. So he went the next morning, took another client. They flew in, took another client, and they went back to my moose carcass, my moose gut pile, and killed a almost 9-foot grizzly bear at 40 yards.
Oh, Mike.
That's right there. That's archery range.
So when they got there, he said there was 3, the sow and 2 cubs were on the site.
Mm.
And he said they didn't shoot any of them yet. And the bears, and he said the cubs were big enough. They were big cubs. They were big enough to shoot. But he said about an hour later, here come a big boar off the mountain and come down there, and he had a big bear fight in front of him. Come down the mountain, almost wound up in their lap.
Oh, boy.
And he said the small one scattered, then that big one was just standing right there in front of him.
Just right
And
there, 40 yards.
perfect.
And,
For a
yeah,
Casull.
I'm kind of rolling my eyes, and Scotty's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, if you'd have been there, you'd have smoked him with your handgun.
Mm.
Next time.
And that's the
That's what
goal
he
for
told me.
this year, right?
Yeah, that's so I'll have a bear tag when we go back. So Scotty says, you come back, we'll kill a bear next year.
Can't wait to hear about it.
The Hornady Trek Light Lockbox XXL. Constructed of an advanced impact-resistant polycarbonate featuring dual 4-digit TSA locks, the Trek Light Lockbox offers heavy-duty protection at 1/3 of the weight of steel. The included 1,500-pound rated security cable with patented cable connector maximizes cargo space for up to 2 full-sized handguns. The Trek Light Lockbox XXL from Hornady Security.
So let's transition now, because we got 2 pistols here. We spent a lot of time talking about this one. Whitey, you've had this thing for 40 years now. It's got, not narwhal horn, but it's got doll sheep horn. It's got everything cool with the history, shooting the first bullet off your press that would become our XTP line, the competition shooting, the hunting, the custom scope mount. Jump over to this one. Now, we talked about you being a fan of big handguns. This is a big handgun, but it's a little bit smaller framed. What's the story on this guy?
So later, I got this gun, and this was a gun that Bob Baker had in a safe. It was one of his early guns, but it was one that he used for a showpiece. So it had magna porting on it out here.
Longer barrel at the time.
It was a 7.5-inch barrel, but I was kind of thinking I wanted a more packable pistol, something that I generally carry this pistol behind my binocular pack.
Oh, right on your chest then.
Right on my chest right here. So I wanted one that was compact enough that I could carry it easily without a lot of extra weight. So when I was able to get this one.
And what year about do you think that was?
Oh.
If this one was 86.
Actually, Doug Durner is one that he knew Bob real well.
Yep.
And Doug is actually the one that got this gun from Bob.
Okay.
And I got it from Doug. But so anyway, that had to have been, how long have I had that?
It's weird when I think back to like what would have been 20 years ago was
That was
actually
1980.
2005.
Yeah.
I'd have to look into it's probably more years than it's probably been 15 years anyway.
Okay. So early 2000s.
Probably.
Okay. So started life 7.5-inch, and what's it chambered in?
So it's chambered in 475 line ball.
Yeah. So if the
I
Casull wasn't big enough.
I wanted a big heavy bullet for a hunting handgun, especially if I wanted to kill a moose or because that was always my long-term goal, was to hunt moose with a, back in the day, I always told people when I first started hunting with a handgun that I wanted to kill a 60-inch moose with my revolver.
Check
And,
that box
yeah.
times 2, 3.
So-
Yeah.
So in the year before, I killed that 55-inch or 53-inch moose. So I'm like, okay, I got a moose, but it wasn't the 60 inches.
Yeah.
Well, then the next year I got it.
Well, it's
Yeah,
all
I checked that list too.
full
so,
circle.
So it's full circle. I mean, anyway, so I wanted it because it had a big bullet, possibility of hunting buffalo and stuff like that, bigger critters, something heavier bullet that I handle.
Well, it's definitely got the bigger bullet aspect. We're going to start at the muzzle end because, like you said, it was 7.5 inches long and magna ported.
Right.
This looks like it came from the factory with whatever you got going on. So what do you got going on?
So everybody's freaking out because I got this brand new pistol. It's a Premier. It's their Premier grade. And the first thing I did is took it to the grinder and started grinding the radius on the bottom and the grip, and then I took the arrow and cut that off, and
I can just see you with
the barrel off.
Several $1,000 revolver over at the bandsaw.
And then I cut I cut the magna porting off, which everybody thought I was crazy for, but I didn't. I wasn't so worried about the recoil as I wanted it to be packable.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and of course, I cut that off, and then I have a thing for these barrel bands.
Of course, yeah.
So I built this. So I come up with my own barrel band, and I machined this kind of old school barrel.
Does it start as round stock, and then you bore it out?
It started as round stock.
Okay.
And then I mounted it on a turntable. So I did an old school way, on the turntable on the mill, and milled it, and then it's got a taper inside, and then it's got a pin that goes down in here and pins into the barrel.
Wow.
Bolts on. So
It's classy.
it's tapered and pinned, and not silver soldered or anything like that. Just tapered and pinned. Okay.
Tapered, pinned, and then of course I dovetailed the end of it, so it'd take a dovetail.
Yep.
Slides right in. Little spring-loaded pin that holds it in there.
Wow, that's true craftsmanship. So if you ever wanted to go back, is that the factory front sight?
No, that's a homemade sight. I made that sight too.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. Tell us about the front sight.
So it's even got ivory micarta, the same material as what the grip is.
Okay.
So that's just a machined sight that I machined out of
Beautiful.
just a chunk of steel.
Yeah. So
Machined
originally, when you're doing this work, didn't have an optic, so you were running the original strap with the sights.
It had the original. It had the original sights for it, but I cut them off, cut the front one off, so I made that. So then, of course, I wanted to have something that matched the front with the scallop and everything that this has.
So that piece in your hand is not factory.
So I made this here mount, and of course, I wanted to be able to shoot it at different yardages, being kind of a big slug.
Yeah, it drops
There's quite a bit of difference in drop and stuff if you want to shoot at, out quite a bit further out, 150, 200 yards. So I made a double leaf, like the old express rifles, So I had two different shooting sights.
Yeah, so you could line up your front sight. That might get you out to 75 yards or so. Then you flip up that second
other
leaf.
one up. Yeah.
That is unique and truly custom built, and just the matching of the craftsmanship with the scallops, the radiuses, the lines. You wouldn't know that front band or that strap that you made right there didn't come from Freedom Arms.
Yeah, it matches. It goes right around the frame and matches. It matches this radius and matches this radius.
Yeah, that's.
So it took me a little bit of fussing around to get it the way I wanted it, but.
And it looks like to me, I don't know how many thousands, because you can't measure that with your eye, but maybe like a 1/16 of an inch difference in your two leaves here.
Yeah,
what do you think that translates to range wise?
Oh, geez. It's been so long
Maybe
since I had that on there. But
75 yards, maybe?
It's more than that. Probably more like 100.
Okay.
Or more.
So you haven't had them on there for a long time because looks like you went to a red dot.
And that gets to be the old man thing, starts getting you, and your eyes don't focus well on the sights anymore. And I'm trying to shoot smaller and smaller groups because I want to shoot further.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, well, I knuckled in and bought a Delta Pro, the Leopold's Delta Pro, and it's a 2.5 MOA, which
Small dot.
it's the smallest one, but it still covers up, at 100 yards, it still covers up a fair amount.
Yeah, it covers up your group size.
So, yeah, but if you're shooting at a swinger target,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. You can
that's
center
all
it right
black,
up.
you can center it up, and you can I can shoot a group that's in the palm of your hand
Mm-hmm.
off of
Or
that.
imagine a moose at 200 yards, right?
Yeah.
You got a 5-inch dot. The moose's lungs are this big, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
you're well
So,
within
yeah,
it.
that moose I shot last year with this was 70 yards.
Yep,
No
So-
problem.
not a problem at
You
all.
just you put the dot right on
Yeah.
where you want it. Money.
Let them have it.
That's
and
the way I'd have to do it.
what do we got here, grips? What you said, a micarta? Ivory micarta?
Yeah, that's ivory micarta. That's a paper ivory. There's a paper micarta. There's a canvas micarta too, but this is the paper
Okay.
pulp type micarta. So it looks a little more like
Well,
ivory.
shoot, I just
Yeah.
learned something right there. I thought all of my micarta was canvas style, because that's what you see in knives and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even the foundation stocks
Oh.
or whatever. But yeah, I just learned there's different kinds of micarta.
Yeah, there's different kinds.
And
Yeah.
the fact that he's got that same piece in
Yeah,
that
I
front sight, how
machined
did you
them.
get that in there?
I machined it down, and then I machined a micarta, and I machined
So you
a,
turned it into
drill
a
a hole in
sphere
the-
or
and
a
then-
cylinder, and
and
then
then I just pressed it in there.
okay. Did you turn it down on a lathe and then part it off?
Yeah.
And then try to catch it? Look at that little piece.
Might
That's,
have made a couple before he caught it. I don't know. You remember?
man, that's a
So-
super cool pistol. Hasn't you haven't had it about half as long as you've had the original 454 Casull, but
Yeah.
Freedom Arm obviously making some world class revolvers,
Yeah.
and with the craftsmanship of Mike Whitey Jensen behind it, you've got some truly custom pieces from the Casull with the grips, with the custom leather holster, to the kangaroo scrotum rest, to the front and rear sight on the 475. It's just, there's so much cool here that I think gets lost in today's day and age when you can go to the store and you buy the factory built whatever and you take it home, you shoot it, and
Yeah,
put it in a gun
good.
case.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's they have its place. I mean,
Sure.
for the new shooters that don't have a lot of money to spend on it. You're young and you're raising kids and what have you. I can understand that. It's
Mm-hmm.
in
That's
that
why,
spot, but
in that vein, Whitey, I thought when you were saying that they came out with these in 1983 and you didn't buy one until 1986, it's because it took you 3 years to squirrel away enough money
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
family
yeah.
didn't notice.
yeah, I worked extra jobs and what have you so that
Yeah.
I
And
afford it.
that grip there, did
On the
you
475.
You didn't make that, or you did? Make
Yeah,
that.
that's a homemade grip
That
too.
is a homemade
Yeah,
grip
with
as
the
well.
same
Yeah, it was
radius.
just out of
Did
a
it,
block.
did it
out of a-
also have the Packmeyer when you got it?
No,
Remember?
this one
No?
didn't. It had black micarta on it.
Okay,
But
well, you-
he's got to go
you
white.
gotta
I had to have
you gotta
white,
change
but-
it.
So
Well, do you have any plans
I
on
took the
changing
black
it?
micarta. I got a set of pack one.
Do you have any plans on changing these grips ever?
No, they'll probably stay the same. Now I got a 41 that I got from Bob. That's a small framed,
Right, that's as
41.
big as he'll go cartridge. And a
so
small
that'll
frame.
probably get sheep horn on it.
Okay. I just didn't know how many sheep
When
horns you had laying around.
I've got some more yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you only made one set of grips, and
Yeah.
that horn's probably
Yeah.
pretty sizable. Super cool stuff here, Mike. So going back to the 454 Casull, the original one you bought in 1986, do you have any particular story or hunt or match with that revolver that you just, every time you think of it, gives you a smile on your face?
I tell you, one of the most favorite things to hunt with a revolver is antelope.
Mm-hmm.
Antelope. They're so curious and what have you. And you can flag them in with your hatch. You belly crawl up there and get close, and you're on the ground, and you just take your hat off, put it on a pistol, and just kind of wave it around, then bring it back down, and they'll start snorting and stomping, and pretty soon they're
take
coming
10 steps
closer, and they'll come
yeah.
closer and closer. And if you still couldn't see the buck, and I'm like, put it back on and raise it again. Pretty soon here, the buck would jump right up and run right to the front.
No kidding.
That was
And
not
you
my
could-
experience.
And you could, and at one time, of course, Steve had told me, he says, because I was going antelope hunting. I talked to Steve before we left on this hunt, and he says, well, I said, what? How do you judge them? And he's like, well, if you look at it and it doesn't knock your socks off, yeah, let it go. Go and look for something else. So I got up. I didn't think he was big enough, so I got up. Jesse Paris and I was hunting at the same time, and we both crawled in on these antelope. And he's like, and I got up and stood up and said, you know what, that
was fun.
that was fun. But and Jesse's like, why didn't you shoot him? And I'm like, he didn't knock my socks off, so I had to go. I had to let him go.
And probably were successful later on.
Yeah, later I harvested a real nice antelope after that with it.
The 338 Advanced Rifle Cartridge. Purposefully designed for hard-hitting subsonic performance, the 338 ARC delivers 1.5 times more energy than the 300 Blackout subsonic. Featuring the 307-grain Sub-X bullet in the subsonic line and the 175-grain hollow point in Hornady Black. The big little cartridge that packs a punch. The 338 ARC from Hornady.
That's a fun story. Now switching over to the 475. You built this one as your backpacker, as right on your chest, going after it. Is there a particular hunt, animal, story with this revolver that you think is your favorite?
Well, obviously the moose.
Yeah,
the moose that was my pinnacle of animal to hunt.
Aside from the 60-inch moose, which was your lifelong goal with revolvers, is there a second one?
Yeah. There, I harvested a mule deer in Nebraska.
I was hoping you'd bring this one up because I like this.
That
one.
was probably one of my best mule deer. Well, Nebraska mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
But we hunted out in the forest. One of the
one day you're going to show me where.
Yeah.
Public land.
Public land, sand hills,
Sand
beautiful.
hills.
Typical Nebraska, though.
Typical Nebraska.
You've got plenty of trophy potential, but then you have a corresponding dramatic amount of people that hunt it because we have so few public lands, and it's very competitive out there.
Yeah, it's a war zone for sure. I mean, there's a lot of people, and if you can pick a good animal out of a good trophy out of that situation, you're doing your part.
Yeah,
So-
and regardless of headgear, when we're at a state that's 2% public land, you can get on public land and kill a deer that's reached maturity, 5, 6, 7 years old, regardless of how many inches he is. That's a trophy. So
4.5.
Yeah, there you go. So you're out there. You've been hunting hard all week, and you share these hunts with your family, which is cool.
Yeah. So it wind was blowing, and so we're looking on that side of the hill that they'd be laying behind. So we're looking all, and then we're taking spotting scope, and we just trucking around, and then hike up to a high point, glass, look for all these. Try to look in these pockets without actually going to them.
Yep.
So you look in there and you try to see if you can see it. Well, there's a couple pockets that I can't see. I know where they're at, but I can't get to a high point to look in.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd been hiking a bunch already, and I'm pulled up there to the spot, and I told my son and his buddy Mike last. Anyway, I said, somebody needs to go over and check these two pockets over here. One run right over here, and then go over that saddle and check that other one. And I was hoping them guys would go
volunteer
check.
to just jump out there. Yeah.
And they all kind of sit there as a stalemate there. And then pretty soon Mike's like, oh, I'll go. He grabs his binoculars, takes off. And I'm like, Levi, take your rifle, go follow him. There might be a deer in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so off Levi goes. He grabs a rifle and goes. And I watch him going over the hill, and I'm like, I should do. So I grabbed my pistol and started behind him, started with him. And of course, I'm behind him. I'm a little bit back from him. And I see him going up through the saddle, and all of a sudden, both of them drop to the ground.
That's
and
a
I'm
good
like,
sign.
That's a great sign.
So we got something here, maybe. And then I see Mike, he backs up. He's backing down the hill, and he turns, takes off running back towards me. And then looks up and sees me, and he goes, "Oh, good. You got your pistol." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "I think you can, this is a good buck over here. I think you can kill him with your pistol." And Levi's there with a rifle, you know, and I go crawling up there to him. And I take one look, and I'm like, "Oh, geez,
Yeah,
Levi,
good buck. Yeah.
I can't believe you haven't shot that deer yet." and Levi says, "I think you can kill him." And he's about 100. I ranged him. He's about 115 yards, and I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna try for him." But I said, "Whatever you do, don't let him leave.
Right.
If I miss, don't let him leave." But I managed to collect him with the 475. So
That's
open
incredible.
sight gun.
And a wonderful trophy for really anywhere. We were talking about, Nebraska, private land, and the war zone it becomes and all that. I don't care if you shot this thing in your backyard. This is a dandy
He was a
buck.
nice buck. He was a nice
Yeah.
buck.
Last thing I wanted to bring up about the hunting with the handguns. If I'm not mistaken, that same year, there was another nice mule deer felled to the hand of Whitey. Am I thinking the right year up by Crawford?
Oh yeah. So that was with a rifle.
Oh,
I
okay.
shot that one with a rifle.
And then
So I had solo hunted up in by Crawford.
Yep.
And come across this wide. He had crab forks, but he was not real genetically great. But he was a big older buck. So
yeah, he was.
and I killed him, and then drove down to Halsey and met my son and Mike, and then we went, and then I killed this other one a few days later.
That was
So
a
it was
cool year.
Probably my best year ever
Mhm.
for Nebraska.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
kidding.
if you guys are curious about these public places, we have 2% public land. They're desolate wasteland. It's not even worth looking into. Okay?
I'll be honest with you, it's difficult, and we've all experienced this. You get on a piece of the Sandhills, let's say it's 50,000 acres. Oh wow, 50,000 acres. I'm going to go find a deer. The deer live on about 10% of that, maybe 20%. So there's no life whatsoever. It's when you find those pockets that you find them all.
And of course, I'm being facetious, but you are right. You can look at a lot of places. The deer density is super low. But
Yeah, we don't have a lot of deer as a state,
if you
really.
find them, yes, that obviously Mike knows where they are.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time hunting public land in the Sandhills, not finding them. And
Yeah.
it takes years of not finding them and crossing places off the map where there are no deer.
They're just not there.
And there never will be.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's really bizarre. But to get that done with a handgun, super cool.
Yeah,
plus the
fun.
moose. Now, we talked about it. Go
You
ahead.
said about 115 yards on the mule deer. I'm just curious, and it's just because of my ignorance, and I'm not a good pistol shooter. I'll admit that. Better than Joe Thielen, though. I got the points on the stage to prove it.
Okay.
How far have you taken game with it?
Yeah, what do you feel comfortable taking
Yeah.
game with it, with your revolvers here?
That one there, I could probably on a healthy deer, I would be comfortable out to 200 yards.
Yeah, well, and that's
200
2.5 to
scoped up.
8 with the
200.
loop hold on
Yeah,
there. So,
if I got a decent rest and all that,
well, you got the kangaroo scrotum.
and then
of course you got a decent rest.
and then of course this one, I kind of limit it a little bit more. It's
Sure.
more of a 100-yard gun.
Yep,
Mhm.
with the red
I
dot.
feel like maybe I stretch it a little bit if I can. I mean, even if I can hit them, way I look at it is that if you look at the energy of the bullet and the velocity that it's gone, you got to kind of tailor your
Expectations.
your distance as far as
Is
the
that bullet
performance
gonna
of
work?
what that bullet's going to
Will
work.
work, yeah.
You don't
And
want to
gotta
just
find
slip
more.
a hole through them and have them run
Right.
away.
Right, yeah, you want that bullet to work.
Yeah, you want
And it's
expansion and what
design
have you.
window. Yep.
And if you get out to 200 yards, that big, heavy 400 grain bullet,
Going pretty slow.
don't expand much at that low velocity.
So what's next for these revolvers? We talked about going back for brown bear. Which revolver are you packing on that hunt? And, outside of the brown bear, is there anything else coming up in this fall or the next year that you're thinking?
Well, I mean, I like my Casull, but I'll probably pack. This is an easier gun to pack.
Sure. Yep.
And then
Shorter.
I do have a new one that I got this year that I've been playing with. That I'll probably have it with us, but it'll be a long range gun.
Okay.
It'll be a gun that I can shoot 300 yards.
Yeah,
Whoa.
and that's a little bit of a teaser, okay?
Okay.
But if this podcast does well, tell us in the comments you want to see Whitey's new pistol.
Yeah, listeners.
Because
yeah.
we'll do it.
Well, if you want, 300-yard performance from a pistol, that's a bold statement. That's a long shot. So, listener, you got to let us know. Podcast@hornady.com, comments on YouTube, interaction on Facebook. Let us know if you want more of it. So we've got brown bear coming up. That's what's on the menu.
So yeah, that this year I'll be there. My son Levi will be the primary,
Mhm.
of course. So we'll be looking for a sheep for him, and if we don't find a sheep, then we can hang a tag on a bear, a grizzly bear, or a moose. So that'll basically, once he's tagged out or he's gotten his critter, then we'll look for bears.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a pound or two of moose meat either.
I
always enjoy
got
that.
plenty of that.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been lovely.
And that's what Scotty says. We'll get you a bear next year. So we'll go
Well, yeah.
So
That's-
we'll get
hopefully hold
Levi
him to it.
That is cool. Mike, is there anything else about the revolvers, about these specific revolvers, the XTP bullet that you want to leave the listener with?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I mostly just people covered it, I guess.
Yeah. It sounds like it's been a fun passion project for you
Yeah.
for a lot of years.
Yeah.
One more question for me, then. I guess you're hand loading most of the stuff that you're running,
Well,
or
of course, now with the 475, I have to hand load because
Right.
we've discontinued that round. But when I was shooting silhouette, I hand loaded
right?
the Casull a lot. But mostly I shoot the factory ammo out of that. Either the handgun hunter or the
Okay.
Classic.
the
custom.
classic.
I figured. I assumed maybe you'd be hand loading that still with the scope and it's longer range capability, but
And that's that gun seems to like the 240s and the lighter ones.
doesn't hurt my feelings if you got to shoot a lighter
I mean,
bullet.
it still shoot 300s just fine, but they impact a little different.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, and if you're getting inch and a quarter at 100 yards with the 240, shoot that 240.
Sounds good to
yeah,
me.
so that's kind of my antelope deer gun now.
Mm-hmm.
And my sons are trying to get into it. So
Handing it
Jeremiah carried it last year, and he carried one just like that. It's a 6-inch Casull. It's one that I shortened. It's another one my son Levi bought, and he wanted a little custom work done to it. So I cut it off and made a little different barrel band. Barrel band actually matches. It actually kind of mimics John Linebaugh's.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind of matched some of his style on the barrel band, and then I did the ivory micarta grips,
Mm.
and
That's so cool.
and Jeremiah was carrying that for moose last year, and when we got in on a moose, he was bound determined he's going to kill a moose with that handgun, and I'm like, that's fine, dandy, and but I says you got to be in your wheelhouse because you don't have as much experience, so we got up
We
on
probably
this.
didn't train every day at lunch.
But
with
we got
weights
up on
your
his,
wrist.
we got up on his moose, and it was we ranged at 150 yards.
Better
When we
switch.
got close, and we said, I told him, I said, if this moose comes, he's with a bunch of cows. So I said, if we can get this moose to come on this side of the trees, which will make you about 70-yard shot.
Mm.
I said, if we can get that moose to come on this side,
Plug him.
you can go a handgun. If he stays over there, you got to go rifle. I don't want you to.
Let's not mess this up.
You want to make an ethical shot, you
Yep.
know. So So of course Scotty, he called him a little bit and tried to get him come over, and he come to about 100 yards, and then he looked at us and then went right back to the cows. So
Can't blame him.
Yeah.
So I told Jeremiah, I said, you got to go rifle. So
Rifle it is.
Rifle it was.
Well, safe to say it sounds like he'll be carrying the pistol everywhere he goes.
They will be.
Yep.
They will be. They're bound term to do that.
Gosh, I might do it now.
Well, I got that one. I'm going to do it.
Oh, yeah?
I'm inspired.
I got a bear hunt next week, and I'll be shooting a pistol, although slightly different, not a revolver, actually a bolt action pistol.
Well, that's cool too.
It's still, yeah.
I can hook you up.
Yeah. I don't know if my hands are ready for that thing.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, this has just been fun to talk about. These are so cool. The history's cool. Whitey, everybody in the industry has benefited from what you've done at Hornady, and then everybody at Hornady has benefited tremendously. The product development, the custom builds, the custom stuff that comes out of your hands that Steve and Jason Hornady need, or that the tool plant needs, or whatever, yeah. And then the concrete work and anything that anybody's ever needed, you're the man. And so for all of us at Hornady, thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks again, and let's get back to work, all right?
All right.
Sounds good.
Guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hornady Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this one. I know I certainly did, and I found some new inspiration to get into the revolver game and get out there hunting. I hope you have caught that bug as well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.